Hey, everybody. I'm Sarah Hamid here with a couple of friends. I am, the director of Blue Parks at Marine Conservation Institute, and we're hosting a series of conversations at Marine Conservation Institute with partners and collaborators as part of our Map Your Love for the Ocean campaign. So please stick around in a minute for the conversation that I get to host and where I'm going to really play interviewer to our awesome collaborator Andi Cross from Edges of the Earth Expedition and our own team member on the Blue Parks team, Jess McCarthy. We're going to be talking about Blue Parks and Blue Sparks and storytelling. But let me just say at the outset, so stick around for that conversation and then consider participating in our Map Your Love for the Ocean campaign using the links provided. We're both raising awareness and raising capital for effective marine conservation efforts around the globe. So please join us in that using the links. And then we'll go ahead and dig into our conversation here, which I'm really excited about. As I said, I get to play interviewer here for a little bit. So I'm first going to have Andi Cross introduce herself. As I said, she's a close collaborator and friend from the Edges of the Earth Expedition. So Andi, take it away.
Thanks so much for having me. I so appreciate it. I'll give you a little bit of background on the Edges of Earth, and then I'll talk about our relationship with Marine Conservation Institute because it's been quite instrumental, this partnership in getting our expedition off the ground and now hitting our 2.5 year mark being out in the field, which is a wild thing to share. My team and I have been traveling around the world since 2022, 2023, documenting the positive progress that's happening with regards to our climate crisis. So our news feeds are filled with doom and gloom, planet in decline. Our ocean is really, really struggling, and we're seeing all of this negativity pushed out across our media feeds. And that's really hard to process. And so back in 2021, 2022, our team decided maybe we should go out and try to find the positives, the good stuff, where things are actually working, where we're seeing meaningful change in the face of this really aggressive climate crisis that we're facing. And what we came to find is that there's a lot of really incredible things happening with regards to our ocean, our land. We're scuba divers, so we spend a lot of time underwater, probably almost more time underwater than on land nowadays. And we've been able to see some really incredible places that maybe have been on the brink of incredible decline, but have bounced back, or maybe have been able to keep their ecosystems intact and thriving. And a lot of our course mapping and where we go and why we go to certain places largely is dictated by the team at Marine Conservation Institute, who has given us incredible advice on where are those positive outliers? Where are these really amazing positive progress stories happening, especially when it comes to marine protected areas? And the community's team, scientists, divers who have been instrumental in protecting and enforcing those MPAs. So Sarah and I connected back in 2023, I believe, and we've been working together ever since. And the team has opened up my eyes to what we like to call the positive deviants or the unicorns in the marine conservation, restoration, and protection world. And those have largely been the blueprint for our expedition trail, which has now taken us to 40 countries, 250 locations, and have met with countless individuals on the ground. So I'll pause there. That's the brief overview of who we are as an expedition team.
That's awesome. I remember when you first reached out, and I think you reached out asking about one of our particular blue parks and wondering about connections there and who you should speak to. And I remember we set up a call and I was like, oh, you want the success stories? I have a whole initiative focused on finding the success stories and inspiring more of them. So we should definitely be working together. It was so exciting to realize that connection and that fit. So thank you so much. Thank you again for being here today and making some time to talk with us today, Andi. I'm going to turn to Jess here for just a second. Jess McCarthy is the other half, maybe the better half of the Blue Parks team at Marine Conservation Institute. So please take it away, Jess.
Yeah, so I am as Sarah said, I'm a conservation analyst at Marine Conservation Institute. And I spend a lot of my time working with Sarah. Sorry, Sarah, but you're stuck with me. So with our Blue Parks initiative, kind of as we've already highlighted, what we're really trying to do is focus on, I know, as we're working toward these conservation goals, like 30 by 30, making sure that not only, are we reaching that quantitative target, but that we're making sure these areas are really effectively set up to conserve biodiversity. So, you know, Sarah and I spend a lot of our time evaluating protected areas, understanding what really makes an effective protected area, and then holding up these effective examples, these success stories, and getting to work with people like Andi, who get to actually go to these awesome places and dive there. So that's a lot of what we spend our time doing. And it's really exciting to, as Andy said, there can be a lot of doom and gloom out there. So getting to hold up these really awesome examples of these places and the people behind them, really importantly, the people behind them who are doing the really hard work to make sure that these areas are conserved in a way that we're actually going to see the biodiversity benefits that we want to see. It's an awesome job and an awesome program to be a part of.
Awesome. Awesome. As I said, Jess eats and breathes and sleeps this stuff. So it's really fun to put her in the hot seat and have her answer these questions about parks and things. So Andi, I want to ask you, you talked a little bit about kind of the motivation behind the Edges of the Earth expedition, and you probably heard the tinge of jealousy in Jess's voice. We both get a little, we're so excited for you to go to these places, and we're just like waiting on bated breath to read your stories about them because we'd like to go with you and hide in your suitcase everywhere you go. But tell me a little bit. I had the amazing opportunity to go to one of these places with you and dive with you in the amazing marine protected areas around the Northern Channel Islands. That was so much fun. And I got to, actually, after chatting with you a lot and connecting over the phone and Zoom and everything, get to hang out with you guys in person. But I'm curious, you have this awesome team. How did you guys, what's the story, the genesis story of you guys, who's on your team and how did you guys sort of get together in this mission?
For sure. So to take a few steps back in time, we we started working with a lot of ocean conservation teams when I was living in New York. And they were going on these amazing expeditions, documenting what they were seeing. But the narrative, again, was very much the planet's in decline, doom and gloom, urgent calls of action, which is really important because being able to understand the threats and the challenges that we're up against is key. But over time, after the course of a couple of years, kept wondering where's the good stuff? Where's the positive stories and who is focused on those positive stories? So I had made a move from New York to Western Australia, and that's where the team really started to assemble. The first person on our team is Adam Moore. He is our head of logistics and content creation. He hails from Perth, Western Australia. And I met him in my travels overseas, starting to broaden my horizons on what are these positive outliers and where do they sit, which actually was one of the reasons it brought me to Western Australia over at the Ningaloo Reef, which is just such an amazing place to get a crash course in an incredible ecosystem. Then we started meeting people all over the world in our travels. So now our team actually is comprised of 10 individuals who live all over the globe. Our photo editor, Francisco Garcia, he's in Portugal. We have a publicist on our team. She's based out of DC. We have social media managers who support us from Australia and the US, a content and copy editor in LA. We have this incredible group of people, all who really care quite a bit about the planet and the ocean. And while we love to bring people on the edges of Earth with us, we've come to find that some of our diving experiences are not for the faint of heart. So it was very fun to bring Sarah on one of our dive experiences out in the Channel Islands and get to see what it's all about in the freezing cold with very strong currents and lots of complicated diving scenarios that you have to get through. but we often have people coming in and out of our team to either shadow the work that we're doing, participate in the work that we're doing, whether that's lending skill from photography, videography, dive buddy, dive support, extra training on the dive side. So our team ebbs and flows with time, but we all basically came together through travel, through the same interest in sharing those positive stories and really wanting to get to explore these natural ecosystems and share the power of a healthy, thriving marine protected area, or a marine protected area that's wildly enforced. So right now, our crew is mighty and does a lot of work, whether on the sidelines or in the field, and it's quite exciting to continue to expand.
Awesome. So, Jess, we've talked a little bit about how blue parks are these success stories, and the people behind them are, these incredible champions for ocean conservation that we get to know through our work in the Blue Parks Initiative. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about what blue parks are, how we identify them. You talked about how we evaluate them a little bit, but what the Blue Park Standard is all about.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't talk about blue parks without the Blue Park Standard. The Blue Park Standard is the entire, it's like the backbone of the initiative. So the standard itself is a set of science-based criteria that outlines the attributes of an effective MPA. So what the science is telling us actually makes an MPA work. And so we've synthesized that information into, you can call it a blueprint. We love words with blue in them. A blueprint for evaluating MPAs, designing, strengthening MPAs, and making sure we're doing all this work in a way that's going to meaningfully achieve biodiversity conservation and create MPAs like many of these, exciting examples that Andy is talking about and gets to go dive in. So we use the Blue Park Standard in our work as basically the criteria against which we evaluate MPAs for Blue Park Awards. And the Blue Park Awards are celebrating these outstanding MPAs and holding them and their leaders and their communities up as examples of, what we all need to be striving towards, what we need to be creating more of, and strengthening MPAs to look more like these effective examples, so that when we achieve 30 by 30, it's done in a way that is meaningful, and it's gonna bring the outcomes, bring the biodiversity benefits that we want to see.
That's right. And we actually have a new awards announcement coming up. The 2025 Blue Park Awards will be announced this coming month at the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice, France. Uh, we have the date and time even for anybody who's going to be in Nice. That's going to be on Thursday, the 12th of June in the Blue Zone in room 3 at 5:30 p.m. Come join us there. And if you are not in the Blue Zone, you can actually catch us the next day on Friday in the Green Zone. And that timing is still to be confirmed today, but that'll be up on our website soon. So we're going to be adding some new blue parks to the network, some new success stories for Andi to go visit. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, also another new blue spark we'll be announcing there. And so maybe you can speak for us a moment, Jess, about what a blue spark is versus a blue park in the initiative.
Yeah, yeah. So again, all these blue words. So our blue sparks, those are our collaborations with the leadership of MPAs that are committed to achieving the Blue Park Standard. So those that are still on their way there, but are very committed to that goal. And so we work with them in sort of this consultative capacity to help them figure out what needs to happen to achieve the standard, and how we can help them get there. And those partnerships look very different in different areas because as both of you are aware, every MPA is different and unique and facing different circumstances. So the actual partnerships, vary based on the location and what any given MPA needs. But at the end of the day, the goal is for our blue sparks to become blue parks. So to have earned a Blue Park Award by achieving the Blue Park Standard.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that connects to this campaign that we're running, because part of the fundraising that we're doing is fundraising to support both our blue parks and especially our blue sparks to be able to make the improvements. Have the capacity to make the improvements they need to achieve the blue park standard and ensure that they're able to produce those conservation benefits to actually protect wildlife. So that's being able to support that grant program to our blue sparks and blue parks is what this fundraising campaign is all about at Map Your Love for the Ocean. So check that out. Quick more plug for that. So Andi, I want to talk about at least one or two of the specific places you've been to and some stories from it. So I know you've been to a number of our blue parks already and a couple of our blue sparks. And I know that you have plans to go to many more. But I wonder if there's one that you want to share any stories from.
Sure. There's quite a few, but I'll limit it to two. The first one I want to talk about is the Channel Islands, the dive that we had together, and I want to talk about this one because it's quite near and dear to my heart. This was the gateway for our entire expedition. In 2021, 2022, we were spending a lot of time diving around the Channel Islands, working with quite a few partners of ours to document what's there. And it was one of those moments for me as someone who's grown up in the United States where I had no idea there was this much life and abundance right on my doorstep. So for 4 months in 2020, between 2021 and 2022, we dove Channel Islands almost every single day. And the diving was mind blowing. So that was a start of the Edges of Earth expedition to say, okay, who are the people behind this? Who are the teams, individuals, groups working together to protect and conserve these really amazing spaces? And when we did our dive in, I think it was 2024, early 2024, it was yet again another eye-opening experience where you're seeing so much abundance and so much life, from healthy kelp to really amazing fish stock to really large and healthy sea lions, and so much activity happening in these waters. So this is not a one group effort. There's so many individuals and teams who are working towards protecting these spaces, from NOAA and the marine sanctuary teams to local communities to local nonprofits, the universities in the area around Santa Barbara in Central California, through to Indigenous and First Nations groups. This is an incredible collaborative effort to keep these ecosystems as pristine as possible. So that, as someone who's come from the United States, not knowing that this is right on our doorstep, it was one of those moments to say, okay, we need to share this story more broadly of the Channel Islands, the Northern Channel Islands in particular, and how do we express the importance of this ecosystem right on our doorstep. There, I think we published about 10 different stories just on Channel Islands. That is across some of our main publishers: Ocean Geographic, Oceanic Global, um, Drift Travel, Flashback, Forbes, the UN High Level Climate Champions, She Changes Climate, the list goes on. And what we learned from this experience is a lot of people do not know that the Channel Islands are right there. It's a place you can recreate, you can go diving, snorkeling, kayaking on the islands themselves, you can explore. And it's this little sacred haven that's largely been protected. So that we like to call in our storytelling the gold standard. And Sarah, I know you can talk a lot more about this than I can, but why is it the gold standard? Because so many different organizations have band together to create that enforcement strategy, that management strategy that's largely been in place for quite some time. And that is an example of a case study and a blueprint that can be rolled out elsewhere. When you think of California, you're thinking of one of the biggest shipping ports in the world. You're thinking about a ton of human and coastal development. You're thinking about lots of resource extraction, but then right there, not too far off the shorelines of Santa Barbara and north and south, there's this little haven and special place that has really stood the test of time. So that's one. Sarah, do you want to dig into any of that a little bit more, or do you want me to keep going on some other places we've seen?
You did such a good job, and you're absolutely right. We find it over and over again that the really successful MPAs are products of incredible collaboration among lots and lots of different folks. So and Northern Channel Islands is one of those examples. So yeah, it was so fun to dive with you too. People assume that I'm an expert diver because I'm a marine scientist, but I'm actually a total novice diver. And it was so fun to dive with a dive master and comforting.
Sarah was great. There was a lot of hype around Sarah not being a very good diver, but you were amazing, and it was so fun. And I'm when we come back to California in September, we will surely have to dive again. One of the things that we learned in our journeys is something called a paper park. This concept of marine protected areas that are designated but aren't actually enforced. So yes, all of that work went into establishing the MPA, talking about the MPA, getting that designation on the map. But then when it actually comes to making those living up to those standards, it doesn't necessarily always come to fruition. And Channel Islands is the exact opposite of a paper park. So it was something that was quite eye-opening to realize is so close to home. Going a little bit further south, one of my all-time favorite, absolutely incredible destinations that we went to was Cabo Pumo. And here in Cabo Pumo, we met with a community leader named Judith Castro. She and her family have been very instrumental in establishing this marine protected area and this conservation hotspot in Baja California Sur. All the way at the very, very tip, Cabo Pumo is gorgeous, both on land and out to sea. But I have never, in all of our travels, seen as much fish biodiversity and mass quantity, these huge schools of fish that were once 30 years ago not actually there. In that region, the overharvesting and the depletion of resources was quite severe. And the Castro family decided against all feedback and all word of the local community to establish this as a protected area. Um, from the community perspective, it was taking away their food. It was taking away their livelihood because fishing and resource extraction was so core to the Cabo Pumo community. But Judith and her family were quite ahead of the times and said, if we can create a complete no-take zone here, this will be an absolute game changer for the community. Our resources will rebound in a major way, and ultimately we'll be able to drive a new chapter for Cabo Pumo in tourism. So over that 30-year period, Judith and her family were really the champions of Cabo Pumo as a protected area. We actually got to go on, I actually believe it was the 29th anniversary that we were there for the Marine Park, which was really special. And Judith made a lot of effort to spend some quality time with us and show us her world. When we were flying the drones all the way through to diving these sites, it was breathtaking. We saw turtles crawling on the beaches. We saw huge bull sharks. We saw so much life. And that was the first time in all of our travels. It was around the year mark when we were at Cabo Pumo for our expedition team that we could say, wow, creating those types of no-take zones actually has genuine impact, because Judith was explaining that there was simply nothing here when the park was established. So that was a eye opener in what's possible when you let our natural ecosystems and our spaces regenerate and have that time to not be extracted or not be harvested. So it was a pretty special experience. I will say now the new challenge for Cabo Pumo is mass tourism is slowly creeping in because this place is so special. But Judith and her family are on to the next chapter, working with the likes of your team at Marine Conservation Institute, among other local NGOs, universities, scientists, and support teams, because it is the crown jewel of Baja California Sur.
It is such an incredible story, and the science backs up what folks have seen there. Folks like scientists like Octavio Alberto and now James Ketchum have been, monitoring in this area. This was even, this study came out like almost a decade ago, I think now, that showed, biomass. That's like life in this area in this national park increased by 400%. I mean, that's just incredible, right? It's incredible. And James's work with the sharks and tracking, shark migrations between some of these big hubs in the eastern tropical Pacific for migratory species is incredible. That story is awesome. I wonder if I could ask you about your trip to another part of the world in Tanzania more recently. You went to Chumbi Island, I believe.
Yes, that's right. We had a pretty amazing detour off the coast of Zanzibar, on Chumbe Island Coral Park, and this was one of those moments yet again where we were educated pretty heavily on the concept of the paper parks versus not. Chumbe Island has, for about 30 years, been at the forefront of marine protected areas, complete no-take zones, even to go so far as to say you can't scuba dive there to ensure there is no degradation on this reef. Well, at this point, I had not seen almost 100% coral cover in my life diving. We were on about our 500th dive by the time we got to Chumbe Island, and we had not seen anything like this. Coral, as far as the eye can see, and healthy and thriving. We got to meet the team who founded Chumbe Island Coral Park, and get a really up close look at what their efforts have been over the years in restoring this reef system. Around Zanzibar and that region, coral is almost completely degraded and gone. There's some patches that are healthy, there's some patches that are thriving, but by and large, it's been hit quite hard. For Chumbe Island Coral Park, though, because it's been a protected area and a genuine no-take zone for such a long period of time, with those rules enforced so heavily, and with the local community having almost complete buy-in, that's another experience where if you're a snorkeler, if you're a free diver, and you want to see what a healthy ecosystem truly looks like, certainly should be a stop on the map. But the other thing I should mention is it's a total closed loop conservation effort. So Chumbe Island itself has an eco retreat on site. Beautiful, absolutely incredible, and almost as sustainable as it can get. The team is working on making it even more sustainable, which I didn't think was possible, but they have big plans. So you're you're hardly connected. You're, living off the grid. You're flushing toilet with sawdust. It's completely eco. And the money that tourism dollars offers then goes back into coral restoration and reef protection, and largely the protection of this special island and this area. And so that circular closed loop enables those regulations and those enforcements to be upheld. The team is longstanding, so there's some people on their team who have been with them for the entire time the park has been established. So that historical knowledge can be passed down to new employees and new members of the team coming on board. And then from the tourism perspective, they're really marketing to people who actually genuinely care about what their footprint looks like when they're traveling, but also how they can get involved with more coral restoration or sustainability projects. They also offer something incredibly special, which was a highlight for us, where they bring students on site from local communities to educate them on ocean conservation and reef restoration. And we got to spend time teaching the next generation of ocean stewards how to swim and snorkel, which was amazing. And the energy, the power of this program was just so significant. Seeing these children who call Zanzibar and the local region home, seeing coral for the first time and screaming about the colors and saying, which fish was their favorite, or having these really transformative moments, only to run interviews with us later saying they all want to be ocean stewards, scientists, conservationists, activists when they grow up, and they're ranging from ages of 14 to 18, is really special. And so this program is not just about coral restoration by any means. It's about how do you transfer that ocean knowledge and ocean stewardship well beyond the Chumbe Island team. So
That's so cool.
it's been really cool to see that one.
And we had the opportunity actually to support that amazing team recently. Jess, I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, of course. We've kind of already briefly mentioned our Blue Park Small Grants Program, which the Map Your Love for the Ocean campaign is supporting. But we have these small grants that are really intended to help continue to improve the quality of these already amazing marine protected areas. So Fortune Bay Island specifically, we were able to give them a small grant that they used to further improve their ecological monitoring, specifically for climate change impacts in this coral reef ecosystem. As you can imagine, a coral ecosystem, even the best managed coral ecosystem, is susceptible to the temperature changes and other impacts that we're seeing from climate. So they very proactively wanted to monitor this and understand the impacts that it could have on their amazing coral reef. So they were able to get, a pH logger, temperature logger, saltwater conductivity logger, a new camera, really great equipment that set them up to actively monitor their coral and the temperature of the water, and other impacts that could be happening. And it came at a convenient, I guess I'll say, a time, and that there was a critical global bleaching event at the end of 2023 into 2024 that they then had this equipment that they were able to use to monitor it as it was happening and understand what was happening, and actually able to adapt their management strategies because they knew what was happening. So they were able to do things like, adjust their snorkeling locations and where they were taking the guests to make sure that areas that were being impacted weren't also potentially experiencing impacts, although likely low, from the snorkeling that was happening. And they were able to use the pictures that they took, and the information they gathered for communications, for awareness campaigns, and really getting the information out there about what was happening. So that was one of our, awesome small grant projects. Thankfully, we've had the opportunity for the past 2 years to award a number of these small grants to our Blue Parks and Blue Sparks. And it's something we're really hoping to keep doing because it's awesome to hear these stories and how these grants can really make a difference in these areas that are already working so hard and doing so much. And we love being able to support them however we can.
Yeah, these are teams that can really put money to good use, because they are doing a great job all around the board and often just need a little more funding to get done what they know they need to get done, to sort of do good conservation. Um, we are out of time today. We kind of rambled on because we love chatting, and I haven't actually had a chance to chat with Andi in a while, so it's been really fun, to kind of reconnect in front of everyone, publicly. So I want to encourage anyone who's really interested in these ocean conservation success stories to follow the Edges of the Earth expedition. You can do that through all of their social media channels. I think we're connected to them, so you can, use links through Marine Conservation Institute to find them. But Edges of the Earth expedition, you'll find them on all the social medias. And also to follow the Blue Park Awards events upcoming and our initiative at Marine Conservation Institute. We'll be sharing success stories. As I said, if you want to contribute to the Map Your Love for the Ocean campaign, you can go on our global map and write about the places that have inspired you, and even upload photos and things. And then you can also contribute to our fundraising campaign. And if you follow us, you'll be able to learn about the kinds of projects that that money will support. We'll be posting about last year's projects and what they've accomplished. And as soon as we're able to fund this year's projects, we'll be posting about those too. So follow us for that. Andi and Jess, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. I really, really appreciate it. Any last thoughts?
We're excited to see the winners this year, and sorry that we can't be there at UNOC, but we'll be cheering all of you on from the sidelines.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. It's good to see you, Andi
Good to see
and
you too.
Sarah, although